Good morning, America. This is Jackie Simeon again. And today I want to talk about the importance of taking care of yourself emotionally, as well as feeding yourself spiritually. So I hope today that you manage to get out of bed, take a shower, brush your teeth, comb your hair. I know it seems so simple, but I understand how challenging that in and of itself can be. So I hope that you're watching, and that's a great indicator that you at least got to the computer. So I want to begin by saying I started my day probably like you. I woke up maybe at 3 o'clock in the morning, tossed and turned. Then I realized what I needed to do is I needed to take that time to pray. That's important for me right now because one thing that has happened in the midst of this storm, everybody that I thought were friends are not there. Lots of people are not here right now to help me. So I'm counting on you to support me and me to support you, to be that encourager. So it's important that you realize where you are emotionally right now, because sometimes the feelings and the emotions associated with a job loss are very similar to that of a loss of a loved one. You go through the different 5 stages of grief: anger, denial, acceptance, and then you go with depression. And that's the thing that you have to be aware of, and that's depression. Because then you might be having panic attacks, which is associated with depression, anxiety, which is associated with depression. So it's important that you do something. Another thing that I use to help me cope with what's happening to me right now is to do something nice for somebody. The joy that I feel when I give, whether it's encouraging words, where it's just acts of kindness, I feel very good inside when I do that. So I encourage you today, make a list of things that you need to accomplish. Make a small list, nothing major. Because if you make it too big and you don't, then that'll just add to the feeling of failure and the hopelessness, and the list will go on. But take it bite-sized pieces. Find someone to give something to, whether it's your time, whether it's words of encouragement, but take the time. But the other thing I wanted to share as I prayed this morning, and there's a couple of things I want to share with you, and this was actually amazing to me, and I'm going to read from the NIV version of the Bible, and it's in Matthew chapter 8, starting at verse 23, and I'm going to share what was just so revealing to me as I read this passage. It says, starting at 23, then he got into the boat, and his disciples followed him. Without warning, a furious storm came up on the lake, so that the waves swept over the boat. Listen now. But Jesus was sleeping. The disciples went and woke him up, saying, Lord, save us, we're going to drown. He replied, you of little faith, why are you so afraid? Then he got up and rebuked the winds and the waves and was completely calm. Isn't that our life right now? Suddenly, out of nowhere, a furious storm came, and we feel like we're drowning. But God said, don't be afraid. And he calmed the winds. So what I'm trying to communicate with that what it says to me, is that don't be afraid. You have little faith. He's with me. He's going to calm this storm. And they made it through that storm. So I'm saying, and I'm encouraging you, and I'm encouraging myself, we will make it through this storm. If you feel alone, know that you're not. And that's the sad part about being unemployed. People sometimes that have never experienced the loss of a job have no idea what it feels like. Oh, sure, a lot of people are quick to say, get a job at McDonald's, become a greeter at Walmart. Okay, and then what? Just recently I had someone to tell me that I needed to downsize. Okay, if I downsize, then I have to pay for packing material, I have to pay for movers. I have to pay for transfer of utilities. I have to pay for storage, first a deposit, first month's rent. Really? Okay, that's smart. Sometimes it's best to stay where you are, cut off other expenses that you don't need, but keep the roof over your head and keep, your lights on. But I understand. So sometimes people's advice to you is just, okay, tell them thank you. I appreciate that. And I would consider it. But be careful who you share what with, because not everybody understands what you're going through, but I do. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to close like I did yesterday, and I'm going to read to you again from Jesus Calling by Sarah Young. And again, as I read this morning, I felt that it was just really speaking to me. So I hope that you get something out of this as well. And it starts by saying, do not resist or run from the difficulties in your life. These problems are random mistakes. They are hand-tailored blessings designed for your benefit and growth. Embrace all of the circumstances that I allow in your life, trusting me to bring good out of them. View problems as opportunities to rely more fully on me. When you start to feel stress, let those feelings alert you to your need for me. Thus, your needs become doorways to deep dependence on me and increasing intimacy between us. Although self-sufficiency is acclaimed in the world, reliance on me produces abundant living in my kingdom. Thank me for the difficulties in your life, since they provide protection from the idolatry of self-reliance. And I know for me right now, one of the lessons that I'm to learn is to trust God and not myself. And don't trust man, because they will only let you down. So be encouraged today. Do something kind for someone else. And most of all, get moving. I'll talk with you later. Have a great day.